Capuchin TV.
Ni baraka toka kwa Mungu kweli, kweli ni baraka, kweli ni baraka toka kwa Mungu kweli, kweli ni baraka.
Endelea kutazama Capuchin TV. Kitambulisho Katoliki.
Bulletin.
Hello and welcome, dear viewer, extending warm New Year wishes to you and all. Welcome to our very first book launch this year, 2024. I am thrilled that you have joined us here. Prior we had informed you that we would be coming to you earlier, but as they say, better late than never. Now, in a world full of ear-splitting noise, one thing remains clear. Reading remains the silent and the most salient revolution of the mind. And it is with this conviction that drives Capuchin Television Network in partnership with Pauline's Publications Africa and the Daughters of St. Paul, better known as the Media Nuns, to bring you these book events that we are doing. Now today, we are set to flip through and dive deep into the pages of evangelization of cultures, the reflections on inculturation, and of course, penned down by Bishop Rodrigo Mejia, the Bishop Emeritus of the Apostolic Vicariate of Sodo Hosanna in Ethiopia. And before I delve deep into this conversation, allow me to introduce those who are here. Of course, we have the author himself, Your Lordship. Buenas tardes.
Thank you very much. Buenas tardes.
Hey, how are you? ¿Cómo estás?
Very well. I am very well, very happy to be here.
Great. And we can see that the happiness is really manifesting outwardly. Thank you for creating time to come.
Okay.
Yes, and he is not alone. He is with, I think he is a familiar face. We have hosted Father Marcel before. Please, Father, introduce yourself to our viewer.
Thank you very much. It is an honor to be invited and at this launch of the book of Evangelization of Cultures by Bishop Mejia. My name is Marcel Uwineza. I am a Jesuit priest and currently I serve as the principal of Hekima University College, a Jesuit university college here in Nairobi.
Thank you for creating time to come and discuss with us, Father Marcel.
Thank you.
Yeah, now, so Father Marcel comes from...
I originally come from Rwanda. That's my home nation, but I've been here in Kenya now for more than 5 years. So Kenya is my second home.
Great. And allow me to note that Father Marcel Uwineza, with your permission, witnessed the 1994 Rwanda genocide between the Hutus and Tutsis. And of course, it was a very horrendous experience for him, having lost parents and siblings in that genocide. And of course, we also launched his book last year in January, giving an account of the genocide, that the book Risen from the Ashes, a theology of as autobiography in post-genocide Rwanda. So welcome, and Father, and we are happy you are accepted to come and speak to us.
Thank you very much, and Happy New Year to all our viewers. It's wonderful to be back.
Great.
In many ways, I'm giving back because Bishop Rodrigo was here as a guest speaker for my book, a new book, to which he did a spectacular work and had done a book review. And here I am, I feel honored and privileged to be at this event.
Absolutely, quite commendable, extending a hand. Now, to those who have delved into conversations or debates on culture and religion, will attest to the complex, multifaceted intricacies and the emotive nature of these two, the frictioning dilemma between fidelity to culture and fidelity to Christianity. Exactly that comes out clear on in this book, Evangelization of Cultures, and of course, to some extent, it fueled this. Now, first of all, we wish also to welcome you. We invite you to be part of this discussion. Get ready for a lively discourse as we explore the profound intersection of faith and diverse cultures. And of course, Bishop May here, alongside Father Umineza, will guide us through the reflections on inculturation. And now, we would be glad to have you weighing in with your engagements, share your comments, thoughts, questions on this intellectual work. Our number is 0717424866 or 0741114031. So grab a seat, join the conversation, and let's embark on this enriching exploration together. My name is Asasha Elizabeth, or Captain Asasha. So welcome, and let's start on, I'll start with you, Your Lordship. What do you mean by evangelization of cultures? You gave it this title. I know the title is one of the most important thing that the author has to mull over for some time. You could have given it a different title, but you chose evangelization of cultures.
Yes, in fact, the common title would have been the enculturation of the gospel. Mm-hmm. But that is the common title that given to all the books on enculturation. Mm-hmm. But it was a sentence to the title. Mm-hmm. Once I had written the book and said, by looking for inspiration, I find it in the sentence of Pope Francis. Mm-hmm. Because he wrote in The Joy of the Gospel, it is imperative to evangelize the culture in order to enculturate the gospel. So I prefer, there are two different things. Mm-hmm. There are two the process. It's bilateral process. Mm-hmm. I put the accent on the evangelization of cultures mm-hmm. in order to achieve enculturation. Mm-hmm. So how the culture has to be transformed by the values of the gospel so that there may be a real enculturation. Mm-hmm. Because any culture, not just African cultures, that is what I put it in plural, mm-hmm. the cultures, to stress the fact that it is not just a need for Africa or for Kenya, mm-hmm. but it's something that is permanent and valid for all countries mm-hmm. in all times of history. Mm-hmm. So that is why I prefer to put the accent on the fundamental condition that is evangelizing the culture, mm-hmm. transforming, and then the gospel can be enculturated. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, it's difficult.
Thank you very much, Bishop Rodrigo. Now, as you mentioned, before I go to further, there is a previous pivotal works, or what academicians call seminal works, on this subject, evangelization of cultures or of the gospel. What unique perspective does your book contribute to the already existing knowledge?
Well, to tell the truth, I have found very little on the evangelization of culture. Mm-hmm. And that is why I could not quote many authors. Mm-hmm. The reader will see I stick to the magisterium, to the teaching of the popes. Mm-hmm. Why? Because it's a new awareness in the church after Vatican II. Mm-hmm. Even the word enculturation is new in the vocabulary of the church. Exactly. It came in the first synod on evangelization only, mm-hmm. in the mouth of our Father General Pedro Arrupe. Mm-hmm. But there is much about enculturation of the gospel, but not on the evangelization of cultures, mm-hmm. the other aspect of it.
Absolutely.
That, I think, is my humble contribution to that.
Thank you for that. And let me go back to Father Marcel. I believe you've read the book, and as it is, whether it's an academic book or whether it's poetry or religious, any genre, there has to be something that really stands out for you. What would you say about this book by Bishop Rodrigo Mejia? What is it that you appreciate most about it?
Thank you very much, and thank you for this opportunity. First of all, it's you see the substantive nature of the book. The author's voice comes out, but also coupled with the teaching of the church. Particularly as we move from the Second Vatican Council, where he makes it clear actually at the time of the Second Vatican Council, you realize the theme of culture is really on a very minor horizon. It evolves as we look at the Synod on Evangelization in the 1970s, particularly with Paul VI, St. Paul VI, and then subsequent popes, and he comes it clearly. Paul VI even makes it very clear to the church when he comes to Congo, the then Zaire at the time, that the missionaries evangelized Africa. Now you Africans need to Africanize the church. That makes so a church rooted in culture. But I think also what stands out is the way he actually explains the vital role of evangelization. Transformation of identity, of mode of thinking, criteria of judgment. I thought that comes up very well. And even transformation, should I say, of identity. And that happens within the context in which people live, within the historically transformed or transmitted customs of a community, values that have been transformed. And so the gospel then comes to shed light on an existing culture, to transform it, or also people to own it. There's a sense of appropriation. So the author's voice, that comes out clearly. His writing that is so clear. Bishop Rodrigo writes in a very clear and concise way, but also the substantive nature of the way he brings out the meaning of evangelization and the meaning of culture. It historically transmitted meaning of values and set of values in a particular context. Then if I were to add is the way he challenges the whole understanding of an existing meta culture or meta narrative. All cultures are valid. And I think this is where he challenges the missionary dimension, that where we thought the model to look up to is Europe. And I think that comes up very clearly. And actually that now every culture can be a vehicle for the transmission of the gospel.
That's right.
So there is no meta culture. That comes out clearly. And
Thank
then one other contribution I found as I read the book is the link and the familiarity that Bishop Rodrigo has with Pope Francis. I think that comes out clearly, and especially in the theology of the people. So several layers of novelty that I find.
Absolutely.
But with time, maybe I can elaborate on each of
Great,
those.
so that we do not preempt the gist for the viewer, so that they can get to grab the copy and also read through and glean something for themselves. Now, Bishop Rodrigo's book draws from pastoral sources, quite a number of them, including the Pastoral Constitution on the Church in the Modern World, Gaudium et Spes. Now, do you think that these most recent documents of the Church, and particularly by the popes, have challenged us to appreciate the need to evangelize the cultures?
Oh, sure, I would say yes. And actually, maybe beginning with Paul VI, then you go to John Paul II in his first encyclical, and then you move to Benedict XVI. You can even see that actually even in the Synod in Africa, there is an appreciation of culture in which this doesn't come out in the book, but I think in the Synod on Africa, there is a way we are invited to a reconciliation that happens in a particular context. Then you go to Pope Francis, especially Evangelii Gaudium. That comes out clear. So the recent 5 popes, if I should say, certainly have widened the Second Vatican Council. And since you are quoting Gaudium et Spes, the pastoral constitution in the modern church makes it clear that the church lives in the world, not outside of it. Certainly invited to shed light on what the world is, but we cannot pour out the church outside, put it outside the world. And the world exists in a particular culture. The world exists in an education system, something that Bishop Rodrigo gives in the second part as ways of actually transforming cultures, education. Gaudium et Spes speaks of the challenge of atheism today. And so if we want to dialogue with culture, we have to be also to be ready to dialogue even with those who don't believe.
Exactly.
So Gaudium et Spes comes to that. But also the centrality of the human person in Gaudium et Spes. So all that is a context in which people find themselves in their cultural milieu.
Great, thank you, Father Marcel. And in Pope's words, that's Pope St. John Paul, as quoted by Bishop Rodrigo, he says that the split between the gospel and culture is without a doubt the drama of our time, just as it was of other times. And this calls really for such contributions to shed some more light on how best giving reflections on inculturation. Now, let me get back to you, Your Lordship, Mejia. How long someone would wonder, because, writing, you cannot just wake up and you just decide, let me write about this. What did it take for you to compile and put together, conceive the idea and compile this book? 151 pages of evangelization of cultures.
Yeah, it's a long process. I consider, first of all, is the fruit of my missionary life as a foreign missionary. We are in 2024 now. I came in Africa for the first time in 1964. That is 40 years, 60 years ago. 60 years ago this year. Now, I have been in Congo. I started in Congo 20 years, République démocratique du Congo. And then in 84, I moved to Kenya. They moved me to Kenya. And then I stayed here. And my experience here in Kenya was very special. Not a common experience of a teacher. I was living in Kangemi, a new parish that Cardinal OTUNGA had asked us to start. It was an outstation of Riruta parish. But he wanted it to become a parish in itself. So I was allowed by my superiors, not without reluctance, that I lived there and I made the assistant parish priest of the new parish, but teaching at Hekima University College every day, commuting 2 matatus going, 2 matatus coming back, every day. So that my students, in a joke, they used to say that my theology I was teaching, they called it matatu theology.
That was so cold of them.
And not only because of that, but because it was very close to people. All the examples, I did not go to books to look for examples. It was life. But I started realizing this split that you have mentioned now between culture, popular. The notion of culture also is something I question in the book.
Elitist and popular culture.
Yeah, popular. Popular in the sense that it's either popular in a same country, you make popular culture of the cities, the culture of Kibera or Korokocho or Kariobangi. It's not the culture of a village in Nyeri or in Kisumu. It's different.
Neither is it the culture in Karen.
Of course.
Different. So how long generally you would say as long as you have been working on this, on your missionary work within Africa, in these countries, as well as in Europe.
Yeah.
So how long did it take you?
Well, I asked when I celebrated 50 years of priesthood. That was in 2019. So I asked for a semester, a sabbatical semester, to put things together, all my experience. But the motivation, the immediate motivation, was the problems in the church in the present times. We see really that this split between culture is also split between people leaving the church, especially in countries that were Christian countries. They were called Christian countries. You know, for example, Father Marcel was mentioning that the Christian Europe evangelized Africa. Now Africa is evangelizing Europe because the culture has changed there. Not only that, the conflicts in countries, several countries, but also in Africa especially, where Catholics were divided by politics, by ethnicity, by tribes, by politics, by social classes, etc., and fighting and killing one another. At the same time, they were attending Mass on Sundays, and they were proud to be Catholics. So what is this? This is a real split in Christianity. Christianity of Sundays, Christianity of liturgy, Christianity of celebration, dancing around the altar, and all that enculturation, and we are happy. But then on Monday, the behavior changes completely. And the person that practices witchcraft on Wednesday can attend Mass on Sunday. And I live that problem.
And they will be on the first line to receive the Eucharist.
Of course, yeah. They put this a logic of juxtaposition, not either or, no. They juxtapose things that are incompatible. How can I inculturate the gospel in witchcraft? I cannot. That was my great motivation. And I have not found, really, I repeat, a book dealing with that specifically.
Thank you for that profound explanation, Bishop Rodrigo. Now, quoting some of the words that Bishop mentioned in a prior conversation, he was saying that since 1994, we have been evangelizing, but rather at a very superficial level. So that calls for a more profound aspect, delving deep into these intricacies of evangelizing the cultures to make sure that we get that whatever impact that we need to witness in our society today. Giving an example of Rwanda once coined the star of evangelization in Africa. There was that racial intolerance that grew up and would later degenerate into one of the most horrendous massacres in history. Father, what do you consider the greatest impediment, or rather the precursor of this split up that makes us to be like we are just comme ci, comme ça?
I like your French. Thank you very much, Sasha. First of all, the context of Rwanda, I think there is a way this book speaks to it. In a way, part of the failure in Rwanda is a failure of evangelization or transformation of identity and cultures. One could say that. But I would also be quick, maybe not to say that Rwandans are unique. And unique, some Rwandans, because not everybody. Some Rwandans, not some Rwandans are unique in doing evil. This cuts across. We have seen this in Namibia, there was a genocide. We have seen this with the Holocaust. We have seen this with Ireland, the killing of the American Indians. So it's not like Rwandans have a penchant unique to them to doing evil. And actually, this book, in a sense, is a mirror to the church we should be. If you see what I mean by mirror. So he invites us to really re-examine our way of evangelization. But coming to church in Rwanda, I think Bishop Rodrigo, in this wonderful book, very clear, concise. He invites us to examine and critique a Christianity that does not make a difference. If to quote one of my theologians, African theologian, this is Emmanuel Katongore, who says a Christianity without consequence. How would you explain that in a country like Rwanda, where 80% were Christians? You will still end up with a genocide. And that happens in churches. Places of solace became slaughterhouses. Recently, we launched my second book together with my colleagues, Michel Kamanzi and Elise Rutagambwa. And the Cardinal of Kigali, Cardinal Kambanda, gave us a strong critique to Christians of Rwanda. And he said, we need to rethink our images of God. In a sense, the book takes us there. People were afraid to go and kill those who are hidden by a witch doctor during the genocide. And yet they were not afraid to go and kill people hiding in church.
In the churches.
So the witch doctor was feared, in a sense, while the church, the building where we prayed, was offensed. So there is a sense of rethinking the sacredness or the holy, if you like. And so coming to Rwanda, there is also a challenge. The evangelization of cultures actually challenges us not to run into mass conversion. I'm not against conversion, but it has to be deep. One of the recent Jesuit theologian Karana puts it beautifully, that the Christian of the future will either be a mystic or not a Christian at all. Meaning someone who is deeply, deeply transformed by his encounter with Christ, which what evangelization should lead to, or he will be eroded by the massive cultures today. And so the book of Rodrigo, I think, challenges Rwanda, definitely. But the rest of humanity, if I were to go to your question.
Thank you very much. We are witnessing the secular cultures, the post-Christianity, so many versions and perspectives on Christianity. But as my professor once told me, is that read the Bible, internalize it, get to understand it, seek a closer relationship with God, and then you will discern exactly what you are required to do as a Christian. Great. So we move on with the conversation. Before
maybe to that,
yes.
It's good certainly to read the Bible. Speaking as a theologian, certain individualism or loving the Word of God is important, but also we should add it also needs to be guided. Because there can be all forms of interpretations that need guidance. And the book of the Acts of the Apostles certainly puts it clearly. How will they know if no one preaches? But also how will they know if no one is sent? Someone also who is, in a sense, missioned by the church. So it's not a free-for-all.
That's right, because I remember that the reason why we have got so many denominations, Christian denominations, it's principally because of the misinterpretation of the scriptures. Everyone decides to interpret the scripture to suit their own interest and understanding. So that's right, I concur with you further. And on that very note, I wish to ask, what is the role of theology? You brought that, you just touched on it. What is the role of theology or theologians in the project of evangelization of cultures, briefly?
Thank you very much. To our viewers, certainly some people, when they hear the word theology, can sound very abstract.
Yes.
Maybe put simply, really a discourse on God based on faith that is seeking to understand more. There is certainly an underground and underlying dimension of faith. So theology is not philosophy of religion, where we can just philosophize. There is an assent to a God, to a supernatural. But also, theology has to do with a faith-seeking hope if you like. What can we hope for? So it's not just only understanding, but also it has a moral dimension. Theology is first seeking love, so that will lead us to action. And love here is not some sentimental understanding. Love is, if I were to use a theologian, Thomas Aquinas, is willing the good of the other and doing something concrete about it. That has two dimensions. So there is an act of the will, definitely, but it has to be made concrete. And I think this is where moral theology can come in there. And so, back to the question, what is the role of theology in the evangelization of cultures? It's first of all to realize that no theology exists in a vacuum. It happens in a context. And theology deals with ideas, deals with language, deals with the context of the people. And so exactly the book of Bishop invites us to see what is the place of theologians in transformation of identity of cultures. And so the theologian then has to, first of all, has to be an attentive listener. Actually, one would say to develop large ears so that, to use Karl Barth, theologian has to preach with the Bible on one hand and the newspaper on the other. So to know the context, the challenges, joys as well, not just only challenges of the people, and enlighten it in the light of the Word of God and, of course, the teaching of the church. That happens in the context of a people who have customs, who have values. But also theology can illuminate or offer some criteria for judgment, if you like. And that's something that the Pope, I'm calling him Pope, the Bishop says. In the transformation of cultures, cultures also deal with people's values, meanings, value, to which, where do we attach value? Some people, their hierarchy of values has to do with success. Let's put it that way. Have I amassed a lot of popularity, fame, and you name it. But theology reminds us that actually our criteria of judgment first has to do with the fidelity to God. We can look to the cross. Certainly, maybe Jesus is the best theologian. He was faithful to the one who sent him. That happens in how we are able to be faithful to our cultures and transform them. One can even go further because theology has several branches. We can also look at liturgy as another way in where theology takes roots. And in the book of Bishop Rodrigo, he comes to the fact that liturgy is the best, maybe one of the best milieu, the environment in which cultures can be transformed. The Second Vatican Council, Sacrosanctum Concilium, puts it beautifully that the liturgy or the Mass is the source and summit, is a place where actually we see the church visibly. So if you are to transform cultures, the liturgy is one of the best media. Not some form of cosmetic. I would use this and once, where sometimes liturgy is reduced to dancing in the church. That is probably a minimum. So we have to see how do we evangelize the liturgy in our celebration of the sacraments, in how they are celebrated. Are there some cultural values that can inform the celebration of baptism? Or several layers of marriages in Africa? How can the gospel inform it? So theology has a place in this, and theologians cannot remain ivory towers. Francis has made that they have to be immersed. And then this is an academic theology. We can also speak of popular theology, something that the bishop also brings, talks about, a theology of the people, a theology that listens to the sense of the faithful, sensus fidelius. The people have a sense of the faith. And beautifully now we speak of the synod, on synodality. So one can go on certainly in different layers. But if we were to define theology as the ability to give an account for the faith we have received, Now, if I borrow from one of the letters in the New Testament, that accounting of the faith can only happen in a context,
Thank you.
in culture.
Great, thank you, Father Marcel. And of course, that's quite different ways that you can incorporate theology into the evangelization of cultures. And Your Lordship, you voiced that individuals and groups and families in every generation need to be evangelized. Why do we need this continuous evangelization, especially in the modern world with a more informed population and more connected, more connected interactions, especially made possible through the digital advancements?
Yeah. There was a classical expression about what is the purpose of the mission. And around 25 years ago, 30, they said the purpose of the mission, where the church is not existing, is to establish the church. While the church is established there with churches, buildings, clergy, autonomous clergy, religious, etc., then that is the purpose of the mission. It's no longer a mission territory, it's a Christian society, you know? But that is a wrong vision, because evangelization is an ongoing process. We need evangelization up to the end of our life. Why? Because life is changing. The challenges are changing. The challenges of a child or an adolescent are not the human challenges of a mature person or an adult or an old person.
That's right.
We have to do theology for the third age as well. You see? So that is one of the reasons why I am not very fond to talk about first evangelization and then we hand over. No, every new generation is first evangelization. Because Christianity, especially in our world today, is not transmitted automatically and mechanically at home. No. Perhaps in the past, in a society, a Christian society that was called Christendom, not Christianity, but Christendom, in society in which it's taken for granted that everybody is Christian, that everybody belongs to the church. You find yourself being Christian. Your parents made you baptize as a baby, everything was given to you, first communion, and you are Christian by default, not by choice. And that is very serious.
Very serious indeed.
Yes, you have to, at the moment, you have to have your motivations and make that Christianity response to your aspirations and change them. And that is the real process of evangelization in the individual. The same applies to societies. The society, when I said, a nephew of mine one day wrote me a letter from Colombia, my country, telling me, asking me whether if I knew how to speak the African language. He thought that African has only one language. And I had to respond
what
to
a
him,
misguided way
do
to
you
think
know
of
to speak
Africa?
African? Only in Congo there are around more than 3,000 languages.
Yeah.
Now, that is why the process of evangelization is complex and it has no end. The main case is Europe. Europe has been evangelized for 2,000 years, and the churches are empty now, and there are no vocations.
Absolutely. I think that was my next question. Someone would ask, is the need to evangelize cultures only palpable in the African continent, or it extends to other continents? You mentioned Europe. It is chronicled as the cradle of Christianity. They would ask, why would they need evangelization, and yet it mushroomed from there?
Yeah, that is why no society is evangelized once for all. It is impossible. Because every generation changes the situation. And the changes are much more rapid and very, very quick now in the modern era. I mean, you can see even a city like Nairobi. I live in Karen. If I come rarely to the city center, If I stay 3 months without coming to the city center of Nairobi, I don't recognize the streets, the new buildings, the new things. So that is just a symbol. And the children are different. They have different. The mobile phone has introduced a new challenge for the social life. So evangelization has no end. No end. It's an ongoing process all our life in all societies, as Father Marcel underlined very well. That is why this is not, I don't pretend that this book is a book on African theology. No. It's a book on church theology, church mission for all the world.
That
it's
cuts
very pretentious, but it is like that.
Thank you, Your Lordship. And before, because our time is really running up so fast, but before you tell us about the target audience, and before I invite Sister Olga Masango to tell us where copies of this book can be found, I wish to throw just one question to Father, and I would request that you respond to it briefly. What could be some of the areas of praxis of the evangelization of cultures in our times, given that times changes, and as Bishop puts it, the challenges of 5 years ago or a century ago are not the challenges that we are facing right now?
Thank you very much, and it's wonderful to keep listening to the Bishop. First of all, it's good to realize that not all questions have been answered. So there are new questions, so we should be opened to new horizons and new ventures.
That's right.
Signs of the times. But one area I think, and it's clearly mentioned in the book, and this is an invitation for people to buy and read the book, is one good tool. And this, in the second part of the book has 2 sections. Bishop underlines the area of education. It's paramount. And education, think of what this means in an area or in an era of artificial intelligence. And this is a whole new culture. Education now in a church, in an era where some people will not come to a church building. You meet them virtually. So how do you transform that? E-culture, actually, that's another term, e-culture. Then in an era of technology, and robots, you name it, that needs, and yet still revaluing the dignity of the human person. These are areas I think that needs further reflections, and I am deeply grateful that this book challenges us to think further. He has not put a full stop on all questions. Actually, he's inviting us to see that the church exists for no other reason but that of evangelization.
Absolutely. That's quite, it's a thought-provoking piece that calls us, of course, to think broader and deeply. Thank you very much, Father Marcel, for that. And Bishop, before any author sets out to write, they always have the target audience in mind. And of course, they have to put into consideration their demographic differences. So whom or which populations are likely to benefit or reap the most from reading this book, Evangelization of Cultures, Reflections on Inculturations?
Well, in an immediate way, I am convinced that if this is explained to the small Christian communities, there is a good structure that we have in Kenya and in Africa, in many countries, of evangelization in common, in group, because that is one of the strategies that we have to change. Not clericalizing evangelization. The priest teaching you and you listening to the priest and don't interrupt. That is not the way. It is in common, in dialogue, in community. And that is why I think I had, in my experience in the background, my experience with the Jumuiya and the Wondogo, the small Christian communities in the parishes. I have written, published by St. Paul Publications as well, The Church in the Neighborhood, which is a book on that. That is the immediate application. But I can share this book with the MPs of Kenya at that level, the same book, because they have other challenges. They need other language. They have other interests. And that is why the book is open, because culture includes everybody. Nobody is excommunicated of culture. Nobody.
Mkataa mila ni mtumwa. Ni mtumwa.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you for that. Now, at this point, I wish to invite Sister to let us know first, as Sister comes, as it is the norm, we allow our guest speaker, Father Marcel, to just hold the book. Sister, you're welcome. Hold the book and say just a word to put it forth out there for marketing and, of course, reaching out to proliferate into the different groups and audiences.
If you want something deep, clear, concise, and well-researched, but where also the voice of a bishop comes out, and in line with the magisterium, the teaching of the church, this is a book to have at all levels, from young to universities and the ordinary person in the church. So, and if you want to critique the book, buy and read it first.
Absolutely. You cannot critique something that you do not understand. You need to glean the gist first. And in his introduction, I like that he points out, the author states clearly that the greatest pastoral challenge for him and, of course, for all evangelizers in the world is the encounter between evangelization and the local cultures. I am a culture enthusiast and I find it really interesting. Anything to do with culture, then I am game. And there are those who would feel like majority of men who wouldn't wish to carry along hard copies. Allow me to welcome Sister Olga Masango, standing as the marketing, head of marketing and projects of Pauline's Publications Africa, to tell us how you can get a copy of your own, how much it costs, and that's the damages. Sister, you're welcome.
Thank you, Asasha. Good afternoon, viewers. Good afternoon, Bishop Rodrigo Mejia and Father Marcel, our authors. Bishop Rodrigo Mejia is one of the first authors. In 1986, he started to journey with the Pauline's Publications Africa.
Wow.
So we are really very, very grateful, and thank you for honoring us with this new publication, Evangelization of Cultures. In your 60th anniversary, I would say, of being a missionary. Thank you very much. So, dear viewers, you can find this book in Pauline's Publications Africa, Pauline's Books and Media throughout the world, especially here in Africa. But above all, you can find this book in Pauline's Communication Center in Ring Road, Riverside, Westlands. You can find this book in Pauline's Medias and Books in Gabriela House near Jequat in Langata campus. You can find this book also in Catholic Bookshop at Holy Family Basilica in Nairobi. You can find this book also in Kisumu, Pauline's Books and Media, near Kwenda, off Kakamega Road, Kisumu, in the compound of Dominican Friars. So you are most welcome to grab this copy that, as Father Marcel said, is really the mirror of evangelization even today. Thank you very much, and you are all most welcome. And if you would like to have the copy reaching to you, and you are not in Nairobi or you are not in Africa, You can order online through the website www.paulinesafrica.org. And certainly also we are in Amazon. Thank you very much, dear viewers. I give back the word to you, Asasha.
All right, thank you very much, Sister Olga Masango and the entire team. Thank you for always partnering with the Capuchin Television to bring about these events. And first, allow me to thank His Lordship, Bishop Emeritus of Sodo Hosanna in Ethiopia, Rodrigo Mejia. Muchas gracias. Yes, and happy 60th anniversary. We are happy that you are utilizing all that towards leaving a greater legacy that will stretch on for so many years to go or to come. And feliz 60º aniversario. Great. So I would also like to appreciate Father Marcel. Thank you for creating time to share with us your thoughts about this new book, Evangelization of Cultures. We do not take it for granted. We really appreciate that. Great. So at this point, I wish to wrap up. Everything has already been said and done. Just one word, Father, as we close, as a parting shot.
My parting shot is you can see a bishop who is young at heart and inspiring us to read and write. So the best you can do is to buy a copy.
Great. Thank you, Your Lordship.
Well, I think, I hope that the book will not get just dust in the libraries and in the shelves of the professors, but that may penetrate a bit in the practical way of forming catechists, especially in the formation of catechists, because that is one of the points in which the transformation has to start in the parishes.
Catechists, thank you very much for that. They hold a very crucial role, of course, informing people, educating people about what our faith is all about. Thank you all for working with us, and I would really appreciate your time. You can share this with others. You can drop in questions, and we will link you up with the respective people in charge to address or help you find the response or solution to your queries. I would like to appreciate the team behind the scenes. So I had Venancio Nganga. I prefer James Nganga. Thank you for video mixing. We had Alan Andiver manning the cameras. Thank you for exhibiting that the efforts to man 4 cameras at once concurrently. Then we have Frederick Odhiambo on the sound, and Zisa Kelvin doing the transmission. And wish to appreciate all those that have contributed in one way or another. And as I close, we need to respond to the signs of the time through, of course, interacting with what comes our way. And of course, evangelization of cultures. Cultures are quite emotive and can elicit very strong emotions. And we also have to grab this that will really contribute or add something to our knowledge. The greatest single cause of atheism in the world, Brennan Manning said, is in the world is today is Christians who acknowledge Jesus with their lips, walk out the door, and deny him by their lifestyle. That is what an unbelieving world simply finds unbelievable. Let your lifestyle reflect what you profess and confess out in the world, even in privacy. My name is Captain Sasha. I wish you a great evening. Goodbye.
Jungle.
Capuchin TV.
ni baraka toka kwa Mungu wetu.